Cryptozoology is an interesting topic. Should it be taken seriously? Maybe it should to some degree, right? Some critters thought to be myths and legends turned out to be real critters. Gorillas, giant squids, Komodo dragons, right? But then again, most cryptids don't even make sense in contrast to the known diversity of life on Earth. Many are linked to superstition and the paranormal. Some accredited academics have thrown their hat into the cryptozoological ring, and I'm going to take you on a journey through the pages of a book that tries to fit cryptids into our world. You Know All Tomorrows. It was a book written and illustrated in the early 2000s and published online by Turkish artist and natural historian C.M. Kozman. After this was All Yesterdays in 2012 by Kozman and a group of other artists and scientists that discussed the hows and whys of reconstructing past life and what we as scientists and artists should think about when putting pen to paper. Hot off the heels of the wildly successful All Yesterdays was the team's next installment in the Speculaverse, Cryptozoologicon, The Biology, Evolution, and Mythology of Hidden Animals, Volume 1. In short, this book sets out to seriously discuss the mythology and study of cryptids, or animals for which there is no evidence, as well as not so seriously speculate as to what kind of real animal might be behind the myths, legends, and eyewitness accounts of Bigfoot, the Chupacabra, or the Bunyip. This sort of speculation, where one creates a hypothetical animal that fits comfortably within our current knowledge of biology and natural history and the creatures described by eyewitnesses, isn't a new practice. It's been done by some of the biggest influencers of the field of cryptozoology. The term cryptozoology describes, as Dr. Darren Naish puts it, the study of any animal known from anecdotal data, that is, from sightings, stories, or published accounts, but unknown from specimens that have been retained and are available for study. Naish makes it pretty clear that the field of cryptozoology shouldn't be associated only with monsters or monster hunting, as plenty of researchers specializing in cryptozoology have studied more mundane critters known only from anecdotes, like small mystery birds, dull marmot-like mammals, small cats, lizard-like reptiles, mystery fish, and unknown insects. None of this fall into the category of the sort of monsters Nessie, Bigfoot, or the Ahul belong. Traditionally, the cryptozoologist, like fathers of the study Bernard Heuvelmans and Ivan T. Sanderson, compiles anecdotes, the stories, eyewitness accounts, and myths of these anecdotal animals. The cryptozoologist then goes on to attempt to determine what sort of animal is described by the anecdotes, how these critters might have evolved, and how they fit into their local ecosystems. This is what the team wanted to do with Cryptozoologicon. Unlike their predecessors, however, Naish, Conway, and Kozman weren't going to take their speculative creatures seriously as possible explanations for cryptid reports. Naish leaves off the book's introduction with, what cryptozoologists need to appreciate is that the cryptids that they endorse are speculative entities, and that proposals about the evolution, biology, and ecology of such hypothesized creatures are essentially exercises in speculative fiction. I feel like this needs to be remembered as I take you through the many works. So without further ado, let's go. Yeti. Everyone knows what the Yeti is. It's a purported large primate from the Himalayas and Tibetan Plateau. The evidence for its existence consists of eyewitness accounts of far-off glimpses, hair, footprints in snow, bones, and a skull cap. All of the actual physical pieces of evidence, the skin, bones, and fur, have all come back inconclusive or as misidentifications. The snow prints can literally be anything, as bears are known from the region, and snow melts to obscure and morph any prints made. We also cannot use eyewitness accounts as valid data, since it cannot be used to test for an hypothesis. For the speculative evolution segment, the Cryptozoologicon crew don't stray far from what's already been said on the Yeti. They recreate the Yeti as a 3-meter-tall, dark brownish-furred ape belonging to the Pongane group of great apes, which is known to include only the living orangutans, but also the extinct Gigantopithecus, the largest ape to ever live. They also use the varying size, shape, color, and behavior of different Yeti accounts as proof that there are multiple species and genera of these giant bipedal orangutan relatives throughout Asia. Here it's shown in a family group foraging for berries and leaves below the snow-capped spires of the Himalayan mountains. It's been given the scientific name of Dinanthropoides, as that's what Bernard Heuvelmans already came up with. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Orang Pendek. There are reports of large and small ape-like, human-like creatures from around the world. Since they're all more or less ape-like in appearance, they don't differ tremendously from one report to the other, except in general color, height, behavior, and hair coverage. As such, some are familiar, like the Yeti or Bigfoot, and others are not, like the Orang Pendek. The Orang Pendek is a primate cryptid reported from the steamy jungles of Sumatra. Sumatra also happens to be the home of the orangutan, an ape with a known track record. It's reported as smaller than humans in height and bipedal, with reddish brown to dark brown fur and a mixture of human and orangutan features. It's one of the few ape cryptids with support from accredited scientists outside the realm of cryptozoology, but still has just about as much evidence behind it as anything else. Perhaps even less, just eyewitness reports and footprints. The Cryptozoologicon crews still do not stray too far from the literature on the Orang Pendek in their speculation of the creature. It is reconstructed as another relative to the orangutan, perhaps even more so than the Yeti, due to its similar features. This guy's got a blonde beard and crown, a dark hairless face, and long arms that dangle to his knees. Bigfoot. Bigfoot is one of the world's ultimate mystery animals. It goes by many names and has been witnessed thousands of times. It's traditionally thought to have been reported as early as the 1800s by settlers and Native Americans, though these claims are unsubstantiated. It became world-renowned due to a slew of encounters, hoaxes, and tracks reported from the late 1950s through the 1970s, with reports continuing to this day. Most reports describe it as a large bipedal ape of brownish, grayish, or dark-colored fur, tall crested head, and large, heavy features. It's reported throughout North America with strong concentrations from the Pacific Northwest down the West Coast, the Rocky Mountains, and the Appalachians. Bigfoot is almost universally considered a member of our own family, the Hominidae, but whether it is or isn't depends on who you ask. Like with both the Yeti and Orang Pendek, there is no good, reliable evidence for the existence of Bigfoot. Eyewitness accounts vary on the exact appearance of the critter and are unreliable as evidence from the start. Most footprints have been found to be hoaxes or are otherwise unreliable. There aren't any good photos, and all hair, skin, and feces samples have come back as known animals or inconclusive. The best and most reliable look at the Bigfoot is the Patterson-Gimlin film. However, the shenanigans surrounding it make the credibility of the footage questionable as well. One less time, the crew don't have to stray far from the literature when it comes to creating a plausible, speculative entity for the Bigfoot. Here, they've reconstructed it as a more gorilla-esque relative to the orangutans that places it in a larger grouping with the Yeti and Orang Pendek, with Bigfoot as the earliest branching member. It differs in darker fur, larger build, and a taller sagittal crest. Roe. The roe is a very obscure cryptid known only from a single account from two people while on a trip through New Guinea. Everything about the encounter comes from a chapter in Bernard Heuvelmans' book, On the Track of Unknown Animals. As the story goes, American adventurer Charles Miller spent time with the Kiriri tribe of New Guinea, who told him of a large reptilian beast with broad collar, large triangular spines along the back, and 45-centimeter long horns attached on the tail. Miller supposedly compared the account to a few dinosaurs, but was largely skeptical until he came face to face with the creature while out with his wife. He also supposedly filmed the encounter of what he described as a snaky-necked beast with small forelimbs, a snapping turtle beak, irregular scoots across its body, and ability to rear up. Yeah, no film exists, and there's nothing to corroborate the story, so it pretty much exists as an interesting anecdote most likely made up as a hoax to make the book the adventurers were writing at the time sell better. For our speculative take on the hoax creature, the team had to get creative with what little is known of the creature and what more is known about the region and its natural history. The roe is here reconstructed as Giraffachilles, a giant rearing turtle with a long sauropod-like neck, a broad, flaring shell opening, tall, rigid keels along the back of its shell, and a huge beak used for tearing leaves from the tops of trees. Canvey Island Monster. The Canvey Island Monster is a bloated corpse that washed ashore Canvey Island, England in 1953. The carcass was about 80 centimeters long, possessed bulging eyes, gills, large 5-toed back legs, and no forelimbs. Another larger specimen, similar to the first, was found a year later. It was about 1.2 meters long. At the time, they were thought of as bipedal, undersea, froggy beasts with straight hind limbs and no forelimbs. Yeah, totally believable. Unlike many cryptid cases, this one can be entirely explained away as the carcasses of the genus Lophius, or the sea devil, fishing frog, or frogfish. The ones that live near England are bloody massive, reaching as much as 2 meters long. They have muscular pectoral fins that hang down from their sides, a mouth as wide as their body, bristling with nasty teeth, a long tail, smooth scaleless skin, spines, fins, and tassely filaments for camouflage. Just goes to show that the carcass of an animal, even a relatively common, well-known one, can become so disfigured after death that it resembles anything, even a freak sea monster. The team speculates the monster is actually a species of huge marine half-metamorphosing frog. It's an ancient aquatic frog from the Mediterranean region adapted to saline conditions due to the Messinian salinity crisis of the Miocene epoch. Its highly reduced skeleton means that it collapses under its own weight and dies if washed ashore, assuring a quick decomposition into an unidentifiable blob. Deloises Ape. Deloises Ape was a mystery primate found, shot, and photographed by a doomed oil survey expedition to Venezuela in 1920. The photograph, taken by Francois Deloises along the Colombian-Venezuelan border, shows a primate propped up on boxes that had a reportedly human-like tooth count, walked upright without a tail, and were supposedly rather large at 1.5 meters tall. So this is a new species, right? We have a body and a photograph of the body, right? Nope. Supposedly the body in the photograph was lost or destroyed, because of course it was. The skull supposedly corroded away to dust because the crew used it to store salt, because of course they did. So not a single piece of the original specimen exists anywhere, because of course it doesn't. This was one of the biggest things that made European scientists stay skeptical about the case for many decades. It meant there was no reliable evidence to check and recheck with known animals to get to the bottom of what it was. How convenient. Since the critter was only photographed from the front, no one can confirm whether or not it had a tail. No one can confirm the tooth count because the skull is gone. The unusually large size of the beast cannot be confirmed either because the photos weren't given their scientific due diligence with the presence of a scale. There are even claims that the photos weren't taken by Deloises due to discrepancies with the background flora. Lots of suspicious details if you ask me. On top of that, the critter in the photo looks pretty damn similar to what people claiming it a hoax claim the critter actually is, a white-fronted spider monkey. But what if it was real anyway? It was already given the name of Amaranthropoides by overzealous racist anthropologist George Montandon. So the Cryptozoologicon crew ran with that. Amaranthropoides, or Deloises ape, represents an extreme member of the South American monkeys who are capable of mild bipedalism. It's therefore the largest bipedal monkey to ever evolve. Chupacabra. We come to another cryptid that I don't think needs much introduction. The Chupacabra is the name given to a creature reported by hundreds or thousands of people from 1991 to the present, and from Puerto Rico to Guatemala, Mexico, Texas, Florida, Arizona, California, and even Spain and Portugal. Dead livestock bled dry are the usual signs of the Chupacabra, but reports vary from reptilian humanoid with back spines to winged kangaroo-like creatures, bipedal gorilla beasts, or even a falcon with a human face. After the panic of the 90s, reports of blue-skinned canines from Mexico and southern United States were also slapped with the Chupacabra, though those have been proven to be canines or raccoons with mange. The only evidence of the non-canine reports of the Chupacabra are eyewitness reports and the dead livestock, which could have been anything. Due to the wide-reaching descriptions of the Chupacabra, the crew went to the speculation bench to come up with something that could plausibly explain the beast. Here's a grisly scene of a Chupacabra bleeding a goat dry along a country dirt road at night. It's a semi-bipedal, nocturnal, predatory marsupial equipped with a long, robust tail, primate-like forelimbs, and acute climbing and leaping abilities. Dinoru caprophagus, as our speculation team has called it, is related to possums, but has convergently evolved a kangaroo-like body plan with a thin dark gray pelt, forward-pointing eyes, and a svelte, bony body. Waitoriki. The Waitoriki is a small, possibly semi-aquatic mammal reported from New Zealand, known for the lack of its terrestrial mammals from as early as 1773 to the early 1970s. It's reported as having a bushy tail, similar in size to a domestic cat, short, stocky limbs, webbed feet, small eyes, rounded ears, short whiskers, spurs, brown coat, wrinkly skin, and a head in between that of a dog and cat. It was first observed at Dusky Sound in the southwest corner of the South Island. To this day, only eyewitness reports and otter-like footprints exist to prove the critter's existence. It very well could have been sightings of a mammal brought to the island by settlers. With what little is known of the prehistoric history of New Zealand, the speculation team decided to give the Waitoriki an origin in a lineage of mammals with an origin in the Mesozoic. They've named the creature Zelandotherium mantelli and show it here resting on a riverbank as though it was just spotted by some imperialist scum. Beast of Jevaden. The Beast of Jevaden is a creature blamed for the deaths of 70 people from 1764 to 1767 in southeastern France. It was said to be an enormous, wolf-like beast with reddish fur and black stripes, a large head with a long snout, short, pointy ears, and either a long or short tail. A military and volunteer brigade were unsuccessful in finding the creature responsible, but were more than happy to kill some wolves and a hyena that they found. The pelt of said hyena did exist as late as 1819, so it proves there was a hyena involved. Besides that, no real physical proof of a single creature was found, nor currently exists, and is more likely to be an amalgam of many different animals. The cryptid team reconstruct the beast, here seen running down a group of people, as a species of unknown, giant, terrestrial, marten-like mustelid they've called Arenotelegon horribilis. They connect this creature to many other sightings from across Eurasia as well, so as not to seem like this was a one-and-done case. Bunyip. The bunyip is easily Australia's most well-known cryptid. However, its appearance is not. Like the Chupacabra, a slew of different critters and phenomenon have been slapped with the bunyip label from 1812 to today. The first sighting was of a black, seal-like creature with a terrifying voice. Others describe a dog-like amphibious animal, a calf-sized, shaggy-haired, or maned quadruped, or even a long-necked water beast with long, floppy ears. It comes off more as a local legend than a true flesh-and-blood creature. The consistent details in some reports of dark pelts, fatty bodies, and a dog-like appearance does point to a seal-like origin of some kind, and the leopard seal was shot in Victoria in 1848 and given the bunyip moniker. Again, the team were free to go absolutely wild. Here, a bunyip, or Thylacophaga hirsuticus, as they coined it, stands upright against a tree to camouflage. It's the world's only known semi-aquatic marsupial derived from the lineage that contains the quoll, Tasmanian devil, and thylacine. These marsupials have the most dog-like features, and some have extremely reduced pouches, which the bunyip would need to have in order to give birth on land, or their embryos would have to have flipper-like phalanges and the pouch would have to be watertight. The bunyip imagined by our team is a fish or crustacean-eating animal that moves constantly from one waterway to another, occasionally getting trapped in seasonal lakes. It has a long, shaggy, oily fur to trap air when in water, short back legs, and robust forelimbs used for propulsion, as well as long, floppy ears for communication. Zuyumaru creature. Y'all should be instantly familiar with this image. This photo is of a huge, stanky carcass caught by a Japanese fishing vessel, the Zuyumaru, off the Pacific coast of New Zealand on April 25, 1977. The thing is pretty much just your average blobster, but does look a heck of a lot like a plesiosaur carcass, so it got quite a bit of coverage and mileage and has since popped up periodically online. The carcass was about 10 meters long and was dragged from a depth of 300 meters. After a few photos, it was thrown back due to how nasty it was. These kinds of carcasses have been found for hundreds of years, and they've all been shown to be the rotting remains of a basking shark. Since they have a cartilaginous skeleton that looks vaguely plesiosaur-shaped when certain parts fall away, the resulting carcass also ends up looking plesiosaur-shaped. The furry appearance of the flesh comes from the cartilaginous fibers that make up the shark's flesh, and they are some of the largest known sharks and fishes alive today, so it all matches up pretty smoothly. Here is our team's take on the creature. Zuyumaru necrosimulacrum, as they call it, is a bizarrely zombie-esque deep-sea dwelling tetrapod of uncertain affinities. It's got lots of fleshy and spiny protrusions and a lumpy body. Perhaps it uses the lumpiness and flanges to camouflage. Perhaps it deliberately mimics rotting carcasses to attract prey. Not much detail is given on this creature's natural history due to the open and shut case of the carcass, but hey, at least we got some cool art out of it. Imbilo. The Imbilo, I'm just gonna say it once, is a bizarre saurian cryptid reported from the Republic of the Congo in 1980 and collected from local lore. It's said by the Congolese to be a large amphibious reptilian creature with planks growing out of its back, green algae growing on its back, and only seen with its back out of the water. That's it. It's known only from one story and not anecdotes or eyewitness accounts. There's literally nothing to corroborate it, and everything known about it comes from the words of the cryptozoologist who found out about it. Grown tired of saurian cryptids having to be dinosaurian survivors, our team has speculated that the real creature behind the Imbilo cubed is Imbelia macalli, a giant, air-breathing, ultra-spiny species of biker, which is a group of up to a meter-long, spiny freshwater fishes that lurk the waters of tropical Africa. The planks of the report are now the spined finlets that sprout from the animal's back. They independently evolved lobe-like fins for crawling about on land during times of stress, and it's been reconstructed here, dragging itself along with a young'un by its side.
Make sure you leave a like and comment on this video, share it around, and subscribe. While you're at it, ring the notification bell too if you want to stay in the know with everything Edge. Thanks for watching. Want to help Edge out? Subscribe to the Patreon at any tier you like for a whole smorgasbord of delicious offerings. Many thanks to Thea Svensson, Steve Bradshaw, Staniforth Hopkins, Nattycat, Dinosaur, Arda Bayer, Abby Smith, Henry Brennan, Dana Manchester, Chris Frampton, and Antron. You've all helped to make this channel possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you.